people who come up with these recipes and find that, I think is called like bliss point in food. These people are paid to create the combinations that are going to keep us hooked the most. Like this is bananas. This is not good. And so it's like, you're right. I mean, if you're used to eating that stuff, if you're going to you have a whole thing of Pringles and then you eat a carrot, that shit is not going to be exciting. It's just not. But I think it's good. It's important for people to realize that these food manufacturers who are doing this, like, they are, the only goal that they have is for profit. They do not care about, our health. And but it's the same thing. I mean, I think that, look at cigarettes. We know at this point, it's very clear that they are not healthy. They cause cancer, not good. And yet how many people smoke, right? I mean, humans are so funny. I mean, it's a wild thing. But once you can kind of detox from that stuff and really start to taste real food, I mean, it's an exciting shift that happens for people. And I see people in our community, I see it happen to them, and the rush that they get from that is really exciting to watch. And this is why I do what I do, really, because I see that people need a lot of help with this and a lot of empowerment and encouragement. I batch cook every single weekend. If I don't do that prep, even if it's just minimal, I'm not going to eat as healthy, because we need to eat and we're going to eat. We can't go without it, right? And I always think to myself, okay, how else, if I wasn't spending these 2 hours doing this, what would I be spending my time on? And I can't think of anything that would serve me better at that moment than to put those 2 hours into prepping some food so that I'm, have food during the week that's healthy.
Legends, welcome back to Plantfield. I'm your host, as always, Callum Weir. Today's episode is a real one. It's about food, yes, but more than that. It's about the stories we attach to it, the guilt we inherit, and the freedom we spend years chasing. My guest is Molly Patrick, the brilliant but brutally honest founder of Clean Food, Dirty Girl. If you followed her work, you'll know she doesn't hide behind labels or filters. She's lived through addiction. She's rebuilt her life, and she turned that experience into one of the most refreshing human perspectives on food and wellness out there. We talk about it all, from what clean eating actually means, the big debate at the moment, oils, we get into childhood experiences, how social pressures shape the way we eat, how to stop moralizing food, and how to break free from the all or nothing mentality that leaves so many people feeling stuck. Molly opens up about addiction, recovery, and how that journey changed her relationship with food entirely. We explore the power of compassion over perfection, why guilt isn't a food group, and how to create a more sustainable, less judgmental approach to health. We also unpack the cultural obsession of control, why so many people use food as a reflection of worth, and how the real work starts when we stop trying to fix ourselves, but simply just start listening. This conversation isn't about salads or smoothie bowls. It's about self-awareness, acceptance, and dropping the nonsense we've all been sold about what healthy looks like. And if you enjoy it, hit subscribe, give a star rating, comment, share, whatever the platform you use allows you to do. Pressing that button's cheaper than therapy, and far better for your digestion. Alright, let's dive in. Peace and plants. Molly, welcome. So stoked to have you here.
Hey, Callum, I'm really, really excited to be here. And I've been really looking forward to doing this podcast and meeting you, because I love what you're doing. And really quickly, I have to tell you, my mom turned me on to you. She's plant-based. She's 82 and she loves Instagram. And she was like, you got to check out this guy's stuff. And I was like, oh, you're right. He's like, what he's doing is hot. And so when I told her I was going to be on this podcast, she's like, no way. Oh, she was so excited. So she says hello. I just want to start there.
Hi, Mom.
Her name is Pamela. She's a plant-based badass.
Oh, I love that. I do love that. I think in the last week or so, I've kind of been, doing my research, a little kind of deep dive into kind of understanding who was going to be kind of sat in front of me. I think when you deep dive, I became very, what's the word for it, fascinated with everything about you, like the way you grew up, the kind of alternative lifestyle you grew up the alternative lifestyle that kind of blended who you are today. But not only that, that there's a lot of similarities as well, like in the fact that although our paths on how we were raised and our ages are so vastly different, and we have a similar background in things like addiction, such as alcohol, smoking, being a potty mouth, also turned sober, nutrition coach, which I think also a lot of people in our field kind of stray away from talking about because it doesn't kind of align with the healthy aesthetic that we're trying to provide to people. People kind of steer away from, the mishaps and the mock-ups that we have as humans.
Mm. Yeah, I think that you're right. And I think it's so much helpful to be, if you're somebody who feels comfortable with it, we all have our limits, but if you can muster the courage and the bravery to talk about all of our human shit, it's a lot more helpful because we're all human and we all have our flaws, and all of us have stuff that's like just so human, and just we all have issues. And so I think, and just because somebody eats really healthy and has a healthy lifestyle doesn't mean they don't have their issues and don't have their shit. So I
Yeah.
think it is really important to talk about.
That is the thing. Like, a lot of us don't have our lives together as much as most people assume we would have our lives together. Yeah, everything's great and happy, but like everybody has their things, and we're all kind of imperfect people. Everybody's a bit of a mess in their own way. Everybody's done the odd and questionable choice in the past.
Oh
But
God, or like 1,000 of them. Yeah. So many questionable things, so many things that I'm like, I'm so surprised I'm alive right now. Like, there's been so many times that I could have so easily been dead at this point just for horrible choices that I made. And, by some kind of grace, I'm still here. And it's wild to think about. Yeah, and we do, there's certain times where I do have to have a persona. Like, I am like a coach. That's one thing that I do in my business is I coach people. And so I am there to really hold the space, and I can be very present and like very together. So I think that there's this assumption that, like, yeah, if you're a semi-public figure, or if you have a, business that's doing okay, or a podcast, like you have to have your shit together. And to a certain extent it's true. But like last night, I woke up at 1:30. I couldn't go back to sleep. And I was just like doom and dread and the darkest fucking thoughts. I could not get back to sleep. And I'm like, I think there's something really wrong with me. And then I reminded myself, Molly, you're human. And this is what happens to humans sometimes, but it's true. We all have that darkness.
And I think that's the thing. A lot of us can kind of close ourselves off to it and kind of like break away from it, or try to break away from it to become a inauthentic version of ourselves to please other people instead of just kind of, being who we are. And I see that with, the stuff that I've done in the past, like especially trying to be a best version of myself for Instagram, and then what like didn't really work, and then I became the more authentic self of myself, and it all kind of like took off and worked. So I think there's a lot to be said about being authentic and just kind of living with the experience.
Yeah, and people can see it. I mean, we're still humans living in this world, although there is, this other big presence now that isn't so human, but we're still human, and we know when someone is kind of bullshitting us, right? We have that little radar, and we don't really pay attention because we know that it's not so, like, there's not that connection. And sometimes you don't even know why there's not that connection, or, but we're, we know, like, my humanness recognizes your humanness. And so when you're sharing that, my humanness is like, oh, this person gets it. Like, I can relate. Right. And so, and what's so funny is that I've been sober for, it was June 2015. So it's been 10 years that I've been sober. And I naively thought when I got sober that, like, my problems are over now. Like, I've done the hardest thing. And I, my whole life I was like so addicted. And I had this very cute idea that as soon as I was able to finally quit, because I tried many times and I couldn't. And when I was finally able to do it, then my life was going to be so good, because I was like, that is such a, like, the most wonderful thing in my life and the most horrible thing in my life. And so when I can get rid of that, like, I'm going to be golden. And that was such a cute idea because, wow, life is still life. I mean, life is a lot easier to handle now that I'm sober. And I'm a lot safer and healthier now. So there's and I would absolutely do it again. Yet there's still shit that sucks.
Mm. Yeah, I think the hardest part about quitting, and whether that be booze, work, just chaos, isn't kind of the act itself, but it's more figuring out who you are without it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's figuring out that person that you kind of drowned out, and just kind of like experiencing life in a whole new way, and trying to figure out where you navigate things from.
Yeah, entirely. I mean, I remember having the thought, I don't know who I am without this. I felt so lost and like I was just starting my life. And I'm like, I don't know who this person is or what I like, or like, am I actually really social? Or was that all a front to help me get, really wasted all the time? Like, who am I? And that was a really scary thought, like that I had to kind of start over from scratch. And there was a part that was exciting about that. But the bigger part was like, oh shit, like, what have you done? Starting totally over. And it took me I think I'm still working on it, but it took me like 2 years before I could go out and do something social and actually feel that spark of, oh, I'm enjoying myself. And it was fleeting and it wasn't like a big thing. And, but it took me 2 years to even reach that point. So it's, I don't know how your experience, if you kind of had that experience, but it still is a trip.
I would say it was a journey for me. I used it, I guess, when I was younger, as a social lubricant, kind of, going out to parties, and you're trying to navigate people, and when you have a drink, you all your inhibitions are gone, so you can just speak to anyone, and it's great, and you like the life of the party. And then when you take that away, you're kind of like, oh, who am I? What? And I would have liked to think that I was a fun person without the drink. But it took a while to get there, and I think there was one time when I went to a bar with a load of friends. Obviously, they were all drinking, I wasn't, and there was karaoke. And I was like, the only way I'm going to get past this to see is if I go up on stage sober and do that first in front of everyone. And decided to, and I was like, oh, that lit that spark back inside me. That I'm like, yeah, like
Mhm.
I had to push myself out of that comfort zone of kind of like, oh, I only do these things if I drink. When no, you can do those things when you don't drink at all.
Yeah, it's totally possible. Yeah, my little light bulb moment was a dance. It was like this dance that I went to. It was live music, and then I realized, oh, I really like to dance. Like that's something that I really, really enjoy, and that's good to know because I would dance before, but I didn't know, why I was dancing or the motivation for that when I was like, wasted. So yeah, you can do all this stuff sober that you do when you're inhibited. And it might like I don't know for you, for me, it's never like quite as fun. It's like the highs aren't quite as high, but man, the lows aren't there. And that's what's worth it.
Yeah, that's the thing. The highs aren't the same. The lows are better,
Yep.
and
Right.
there's no hangover to it, which is great.
Right. which is worth all of it. I mean, every morning when I wake up for the past 10 years, I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. Like I can't believe how good I feel. And that feeling never goes away. Like just being in awe of a hangover free morning, it's the best. It's the best.
That's the thing, because I don't think we ever woke up and like with a hangover and was like, oh, I wish I drunk last night. Like you kind of like you wake up wishing you didn't drink, but then carry on anyway.
Yeah, carry on anyway and do it all over again. In my case anyways, it was definitely that loop. And like I'm thinking I don't even want to drink and I'm putting it in my mouth. Like I don't even, like I would love to not, like I just remember I just don't want it, and it, yeah, it's such a mind fuck. And
Mm.
yeah, I'm really thankful to be out of that loop.
Yeah, I feel like the loop did continue for a lot longer than I actually would. But I think growing up in England as well, you have a very big drinking culture over here,
Hmm.
which is then obviously pushed on. That we start drinking at what, 15, 16, and then
Yeah.
obviously going off to very cheap party islands and working on those party islands just fuels it even more, and then it just becomes like an addictive personality trait, if anything. And it's kind of, yeah, after that it's just kind of like, do I need this, do I not need it, but because everybody else is doing it, I'm just going to stick with it.
Yeah.
And I think after a while you just kind of, you have to have that moment for yourself to be like, this needs to stop. It doesn't just happen.
No. Yeah, for sure. And I started drinking. The first time I got drunk, I was 14. And so also very young. I mean, I think that was a little younger than usual here in this culture, but I remember having that first drink, and I was a very anxious kid. I was a very like, I had a couple of early childhood type of like traumas, and I was very anxious and clingy and worried. And I remember having that like first, it was like this really cheap boxed wine at a New Year's party. And I just remember laying in the grass and looking up at the sky. And I had always been really scared to look up at the sky because of the vastness of it. It was so, so big that I felt so small that it would kind of give me a panic attack. And I remember looking up in the, laying in the grass, looking up at the sky and not feeling fear or not feeling worry or not feeling anxiety. For the first time, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Right. And then that sort of started my journey with it. And, I don't know about you, but did you feel like at what point in your drinking journey did it progress and get worse as you got older, like your dependency on it?
Yeah, I realized that. So yeah, my dependency got worse as I got older. The more I knew how to function as an adult with it,
Mm-hmm.
you become a very high functioning adult. You can go to work, you can go still do stuff, and you're like, oh, maybe I don't have an issue, maybe I don't have a problem, and then say like, oh, maybe I can drink some more because this clearly isn't an issue for me, and then it just progresses further and further down the line, and you become, I would say, more dependent on it to kind of blank out kind of emotions or rough days or anything else. Even if you had a rough day, it'd be like, hey, maybe I'd just have another drink just to kind of like soften it, because nothing really, you feel very blank, you feel very like kind of flatlined, that nothing really takes that edge off anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's true. That was definitely my experience as well. And just the older I got, the more I was like, okay. So, because I think when I was like a teenager, I would drink in excess for sure, but it's like I could take it or leave it. Like it wasn't something that I needed to really function. And I would remember like just very bad hangovers where I'd be like, as a younger person and being like, okay, well, I'm just not going to do life today. But then as an adult, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And yes, on the, okay, I've had a hard day, I should drink. But I also got to the point where I was like, oh, something good happened, I want to celebrate, let's drink. Or, hey, I'm bored, I want to drink. Hey, I don't feel like I'm feeling kind of low, I want to drink. All of a sudden it was like there was like a use case every time. Like every use case, the alcohol was there. And I remember thinking, oh, yeah, this is just kind of a lubricant now for everything. This is like the junk drawer that you just put everything in. Right. And yeah.
I would say it's very much the same. It's very much that every opportunity was an opportunity to drink, but also was always an opportunity to always finish the drink as well. It was never that I could just kind of like leave a drink. Like if I was in a bar with some friends and they were like kind of like finishing, but they like finished with like maybe half a glass or maybe a quarter, I was like, well, that's not good enough, guys.
Yeah, I can't fathom that. My ex actually, we enjoy drinking together, and she, when she was done, she would leave a half a glass of wine or a half a drink, and I'm like, this is how I know that we're not the same. Like this is how I know that she like doesn't have a problem and I do. And it was something that I thought to myself because I didn't want to admit that out loud to anybody, because that really meant that it was true and I might one day have to change it, and I didn't want to. But I was like, if you can leave a half a glass full of alcohol and just leave it, like, that's just something that I could never, ever do. I would never do that. Why would you do that? I want every last drop, and I want it until, like, I pass out. That was to the extreme. I mean, my tolerance was so crazy high, that it was, you know, I mean, I would black out for sure, but nobody would know. Like, I would just be normal me, but, like a drunk version, but nobody knew how bad it was because I was able to just like, didn't seem like anything was wrong.
That's the thing. I think like being also a high functioning drinker is the most dangerous kind as well, because you can kind of
Yeah.
keep up the facade and
Yeah.
nobody really pushes you to stop, because nobody really knows that like what you're kind of doing to yourself, because you just seem like you have the ability to just carry on and do life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there are, and I think I'm kind of like that even without drinking. Like, I think I have a pretty high tolerance for discomfort, and I have a pretty high tolerance for like I internalize things a lot, and so I have to really be careful of that. I mean, and that is part of like the recovery after you stop the substance, because you stop the substance and that's one thing, and that's a huge thing out of the way, and then rebuilding yourself is a whole nother form of like getting sober almost. And really like finally you're able to unpeel the layers and really look at yourself, in a way that's clear. That's hard work, and I'm still very much a work in progress.
Hmm. I think very much the same. Very much the same. I think one thing that did fascinate me a lot was that you have such a different story to many of us. If we go back before you started, obviously, clean food, dirty. Love the name. Um, you had such a different upbringing to the large majority of like humans. Like, and I actually feel like that's something a lot of people romanticize these days as well. A lot of people see your upbringing and they're like, "Oh, that's a £3,000 retreat." People pay for that now, but you were kind of
So true.
living off the land in a teepee.
Hmm. Yeah, I was. I didn't think anything at the time that it was different. My best friend who lived on the land like up from us, she lived in a school bus while her parents built her house. So it was, it that was just kind of normal. I mean, we didn't have an indoor toilet. We didn't have, even like running water in the beginning. We didn't have indoor plumbing in the beginning. We didn't. It was very like back to basics living. And my parents really, they grew up in a very traditional kind of white picket fence house. Very, the man goes and works, and the woman takes care of the kids and cooks, and it was very traditional, for both of them, and they both found their way to a much different life, and a life that neither one of them, I mean, both of them have said, if I had to live that life that my parents wanted for me, or if that my parents lived, like, I would be dead, because my soul needed something else. And so they found their way to each other and both had that kind of sensibility, and then started their life together, and really just decided to have a much different life for their kids, and one that was not, it was sort of not about consumerism or capitalism as much as they could get out of that living in this society, but really focusing on being self-reliant, and being together, and growing your own food, and being really, treading really lightly, and having community. So I grew up with very different idea, a very different life than most people, and I thought that it was very normal until I started to go to school and see other kids' houses and how they were raised. And then I quickly realized, yeah, this isn't normal. But still, I mean, really grateful for it.
Yeah. Was it kind of like getting back to nature really? Because obviously a lot of people are very much, they are in their houses, they have their gardens, they're pretty content as you can be with that. Whereas obviously this was it various structures, or were you all in just one giant teepee?
Well, so while they were building the houses, so they bought 5 acres of like raw land, like right, like in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. And so they were gonna, my dad had learned how to build adobe bricks,
Mm.
And he went to the library and checked out a book about it, and then he worked with some guys who kind of taught him. And so he was like, okay, well, I can do this. And so my mom was like, well, I can do it too. So they were like doing this project together to build these houses. And so we all lived in the teepee as that was happening. And they didn't want to build one house because they wanted to have privacy, and they wanted their kids to have privacy. And my mom wanted us to have to walk outside to get to each structure so that we can feel the dirt underneath our feet and look up at the night sky and be outside a good portion of the time. And so they built their houses in such a way where it's like the kitchen was one structure, their room was another structure, there was some other bedrooms for the kids over here, and it was all, kind of spread out. But we all lived in that teepee while they were building those structures. And then my mom and dad, they made like an outside kitchen that my mom could cook in. And she grew a bunch of vegetables and as much food as she could. And then they built the first kind of bigger room, and then we moved into there while they built the other ones. But my parents didn't get an indoor toilet until I was 17. And it was the year that I moved away from home. So I was like, well, thanks. It's great. Bad timing.
They were just waiting for you to move out.
They were just right. They wanted me to rough it, I guess. Yeah. And they also, like, what shocked me is, like, I did not grow up with any screens, any telephone, like a telephone. They didn't, I mean, even just a landline. They were like, we're not going to do it. We're not going to have screens. You're not going to have a TV. They're like, you can listen to records, you can read, you can go outside. And, granted, it was easier to do that then because that was in the 80s. But they eventually did get a TV, and eventually they got cable. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not like you at all. And so they kind of, enjoyed some more like modern comforts as they got older. But yeah, it was pretty hardcore the entire time I was there.
Absolutely love that. Do you think that, like, in a way, like, living like that has kind of shaped how you see things, like, later on down the line, like things like comfort? Because, a lot of people look for, like, that big house, that very materialistic things. They're like, they want that car, they want everything, everything, everything. Whereas, because you didn't grow up with a family that have those kind of ideals, does it kind of, shape how you look at life, and like what you want as a thing, as on a day-to-day basis?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely shaped a lot of how I think about that. But in the beginning, I really wanted something that was very opposite of that, because I was like, I want like on demand heat. I want an indoor toilet. I want like a house where I don't have to walk from house to house. I want it to be, comfortable. Like I want to, because I mean, my parents both had jobs and they had enough money, but it certainly was not, there was not a lot of extra. And so in the early part of my life, I just wanted the absolute opposite. And I wanted to be a fashion photographer. I wanted to make a lot of money. I wanted to, have a big normal house. I wanted a swimming pool. Like I wanted all of that stuff. Because I thought that would somehow, like, I wanted to experience it. And I also just thought it would be much more comfortable. And so, I and at one point, like, I did have that, right? I did have like the huge house and the pool and the whatever. Um, and then, that went away. And so it's how I was raised reinforced the fact that, oh, this stuff doesn't create happiness. It certainly can create some comfort, but it's not the cause of being happy. I mean, nothing outside of us is. And I think back on my life, and I'm like, some of the times I was the most happy is when times that I also had like the least amount of money. And and there was just moments in my life where I remember being so happy, and I was like, oh, my bank account was like slim then, so I think that it reinforces kind of the thing that most of us get to eventually realize, hopefully. Right? That it's not the stuff outside of us, that it's all within us. And also, money and cars and fancy houses and this and that, these all come and go. Like, this is all energy that comes and it goes, and we don't really own anything ever. We are here for a very short time, and at best we're borrowing things for a short time, even if that's a car or a house or land, or we don't own anything, and we all die, and we die with we can't take it with us. And so I think that as I've evolved and as I've grown, my upbringing has made it easier for me to be like, yeah, that's right. Like, I see that because I had that experience.
It's no surprise I don't think that with that upbringing comes with the fact that you've never eaten meat. I feel like those things kind of go hand in hand.
Of course, right? Of course. It would be weird otherwise.
So what did food look like for you back then?
Well, food looked like food. I mean, it looked like beans and rice and tofu and tempeh and soy milk and rice milk and lettuce and peas and carrots and potatoes, and it just looked like food. And I never thought anything of it, I certainly never thought that anything was missing, or felt like, and again, for a long time, I didn't know that there was such a thing as meat, right? So it was yummy and easy. And I was in the kitchen with my mom a lot. She loved to cook. She loved to grow veggies. She loved to have me, helping chop things and cook things. So I sort of was in our outside kitchen from a really early age, and having fun with food. And it was delicious and wonderful. And it was just normal food.
So I'm guessing that because of that, like, there was not really any kind of like junk food in the house, like things
you
like,
are right. Correct.
Yeah.
No, there was no, I mean, my mom would buy okay, first of all, full disclosure, my nickname when I was small, one of them was Millet Mall, because I loved millet so much, because every 8-year-old does, right? So for breakfast, it would be either like millet or rice, or a mix of them both with a bunch of fruit and then some cinnamon on top, and then like non-dairy milk. And so that was like breakfast. Now, when I started to get a little bit older, my mom did not shop at like a regular grocery store. We had a very small like food co-op where she would buy food in bulk, and but it was rare that she would go to like a regular grocery store that had like regular food. And at one point I went into the grocery store with her, and of course they put the most, vibrant packaging lower so that the kids can like see them. And we went through the cereal aisle, and I was like, wow, I want that cereal with the like, animation, or, the cartoons and stuff. And she was like, no, she's like, if you want box cereal, I'll do it sometimes, but your only choice is grape nuts. I don't know if you're familiar with grape nuts or not.
I have no idea what a grape nut is.
So grape nuts was this horrible cereal that just was like, it was like little wheat bits, very, very hard. No, no sugar, no anything. It was just like wheat in little pellets. And I was like, okay, grape nut, sure. And it was horrible. And so, but that was, junk food. We had, for sweetener, she used molasses. She used some maple syrup. She would buy, there was a lot of carob powder, carob chips. Like, carob, I think, was bigger in the 80s than it is now. But no, there was no junk food.
When you obviously get older, you go to school and you see people are eating these things. Is that kind is there a kind of like, not so much jealousy, but that kind of draw towards it, but like, I want a bit of that? Is there kind of like,
oh God, no,
because you've never had it, so you're kind of like, ooh.
No, I always felt like eating meat, like it did not belong in my mouth. Like the way that I thought about it then, and still think about it, is if somebody offered me rocks and they're like, here, have some lunch, have these rocks. And I'm like, but those are rocks. I don't eat rocks. Rocks belong on the ground, not in my body. And it just, I just never, even from a young age, when I saw, that, I would go to McDonald's with my friends, and they would order burgers and all of this, and I would order, a bun with like ketchup and lettuce. And The people at McDonald's did not like me in 1989. I can tell you that, because that was very weird. But I never was interested. I never understood it, and I never thought that it belonged in my mouth. And I still feel that way. So, and I think that part of that was how I was raised, but I think that the part of that is just who I came into this world as.
Mm. So I'm guessing with you growing up on plants, that puts you in a great position to be more creative with plants. And like, obviously, the majority of what you know is plants, and then obviously
Yes.
created, clean food, dirty girl. So I assume, to be fair, I assume you've probably been asked this on every podcast possible, but what does, clean food, dirty girl mean?
Right. Yes. So it depends on who I'm talking to. If it's somebody who I can tell is going to get offended easily or needs a little bit of a softer landing, I say that clean food, dirty girl. Well, because in order to, get healthy and eat really healthy food, you have to get in your kitchen and get your hands dirty. Like, that's one way. Okay. But the original, and then I say, if that's too much, a lot of people in the community will be like, I really want to tell my aunt or my doctor or my so and so about you, but like, I don't want to tell them the name, because a lot of people do think that it's porn. And I'm like, well, okay, I get that. People either really like the name or they just don't get it. So for those people, I'm like, just tell them to go to mollypatrick.com. It'll forward you to the clean food dirty girl thing, and you'll never have to say the name. So there's some people that do get weird about it. And there's other people who really love it. But in truth, I really liked the juxtaposition and the contrast between, healthy eating and the dirty part. And for me, I swear I can talk like a sailor. When I created it, when the name came, I was still drinking, I was still smoking, like I was anything but clean. And so I really liked the contrast to it. And I thought that it had a stickiness to it that people would remember. And so I went with it. And yeah, there's been a couple of times that I'm like on a podcast with somebody really, really professional and kind of buttoned up. And I'm like, oh God, okay. A little bit awkward, but for the most part, it's done me well.
I love the name, but I also feel like it goes with everything that I love anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I have a sticker on my car, like "Clean Food, Dirty Girl," and it's true. Sometimes, like, there's certain people, they're like, "Ooh, what's that?" Get your head out of the gutter. Like, this is not porn. Like, that's the only thing, right? Is like the porn reference or like the food porn stuff. But it's been fine. It's a good conversation starter, and it really does, I think, represent who I am, because yes, I do have a very healthy lifestyle, but also, like, I'm a mess as well, just like everybody else is. And we are all a mess, aren't we? Like, if anybody says otherwise, like, we're lying.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's not one person that I know that isn't a mess in some way, shape, or form
Yes.
in their life.
Yes.
As much as they make out that I'm not, as much as they're like, "Oh, I've got everything together."
No.
Nobody's got everything together. Like I've met I've met some people that I've looked up to, being like, "Hey, like you have your life together," and then you find out it's all for show.
Yes. And isn't it so, and we were talking about it in the beginning, it's so refreshing to hear somebody say, yeah, I'm a mess, or I am, flawed, or I have this issue. But it's also really such a weight off to be able to admit that and to say it about ourselves, and just be able to be whoever the fuck we are in that moment, and knowing that it changes from moment to moment, and knowing that, like, yeah, just to drop it and be like, yeah, there's some really awesome things about me, and there's other shit that I got to work on. And it's all of it.
Yeah,
It's all of it.
yeah. It's also very freeing to say it, like admit it, and also knowing that everybody around you is just complete crackers, realistically.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Yeah. I love that we're talking about this, because, yeah, again, it is refreshing, and it is sort of like a different way to move through the world, to not, and we all, and I even, and I can even say this, but I still want to be perfect. I still want to please people. I still, like, really don't like it when I fuck up. I still have this idea that, like, oh, I'm not good enough. Right. And at the same time, I can still say, yeah, I know I'm not perfect. I know I suck. I know that I have, like, issues. I know that, like, all of this. And it's still both true. Like it's still all true. But even I think that, and maybe part of that is being a woman, and maybe part of that is just society's impact on on women and gender roles and all of this. But it's still true, all of it. Like, just because I can say I'm imperfect doesn't mean that I don't want to be sometimes.
Mm. I would say, as much as I think both genders do have that feeling towards it, I think it is more pushed on women to be more of a perfect role model than it is on guys. We're known to be shits constantly, anyways. Whereas you
Right.
are going to be the perfect ones.
Right, it's a little more expected from you fellas. We not so much for us. Doesn't make it any less true, but it's I think that you're right about that. And I love that you're a man willing to say that. So good for you. Thank you.
So clean food. What does that mean to you? Because I think that can be taken in so many different ways, and clean eating can be, it's so subjective to the person. So somebody saying clean eating can mean whole foods plant based for 70% of the time, and then chips and Oreos and McDonald's the rest of the time.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's going to mean different things to different people. For me, and I've also talked to people and been on podcasts with people who really didn't want to have me on because of the name, because there's this idea that, well, if you're saying that this food is clean and good, then other food is dirty and bad. And there's that kind of rabbit hole that you could get into as well. And it's everybody's going to have their take and their opinion on it and what it means to them. I mean, for me, it means eating food that hasn't been fucked with, like eating food that comes from the earth and hasn't been, processed too much. Like, it means plants in their, whole and natural form, or that have had some minimally processed things like tofu or tempeh, right? So for me, that's what it means. It's pretty simple and straightforward. And and now a lot of people in our community are on board with that. Some people, for them, it is going to mean I'm going to eat whole food plant-based for 80% of the time, and the other 20% I'm not. And for them, that's what it means. So I think it's up to each person. But that's definitely what it means to me.
And does that include oils? Because I know that's such a big debate
The oil
topic between I think everybody, not even just vegans and whole food plant based people. It's just a huge topic at the moment, whether oil is good, whether we should be having it, whether we shouldn't be having it. But oil in general, are we avoiding that?
So it is a big topic, even within the plant-based community, and now with seed oil being really hot topic. So I try to tread lightly on this. Okay, so here's the thing. All of our recipes, they don't include oil. Now, they can if you want them to. Is oil the worst thing in the world? I don't think so. When I switched, so I was vegetarian for a long time, then I switched to specifically vegan, and then in 2014 I had read a couple books and I was really interested in the whole food plant-based eating. And for me, it was more of I wonder if I could make food taste as good without using oil, or without using vegan butter, right? Or without using vegan cheese. It sparked my curiosity more than anything. And I'm like, I wanted to get in the kitchen and fuck around and see if I could make stuff taste really good without it. Because for me, from everything that I know about oil, there's not a ton of reasons to add it. And so it's you can, but there's not good reasons that you're not getting anything from oil that you can't get from whole plant foods. Right? So it's just to me, it's just an unnecessary ingredient. And so it's just not necessary. That's kind of how I feel about it. And so as I started, messing around in the kitchen and coming up with recipes, I was like, actually this is doable. I could really, and it was expanding how I cooked and the ingredients I was using and the techniques that I was doing, which I really loved, because it got me to be a little bit more creative. And then, so I had stopped using oil to cook with, and stopped eating oil. I was still smoking a pack of cigarettes a day and drinking a shit ton of alcohol, mind you. So let's just put that in context and take it with a grain
It's
of
all
salt.
balanced. It's all balanced.
Right, right. But the oil, but I had, okay, I'm going to experiment with this. And then about a year after that, one of my favorite things used to be a really good baguette dipped in really good olive oil with some like flaked salt and pepper. And there was an Easter get together. My sister was visiting and she had gotten like the good oil and the good baguette. And I was like, oh, great, I'm going to try this. Like, and I went to try it and I hadn't eaten oil for that past year. And it felt so weird in my mouth. It felt really like there was a coating and it didn't it didn't taste good. Like my taste buds had really changed. And I realized, I don't like the way that tastes. And so I just kept on going on that trajectory. But mainly because I just don't think it's necessary as far as like the nutrition. You can get that from whole plant foods, right? It makes it a little bit easier to cook certain things. But it's totally possible to eat a really delicious, have a really delicious way of eating without it.
So, for somebody that wants to try cook without oil, like, how does one go about that? Because I think we're so used to having oil left, right, and center. Where we're not using oil, we're using some sort of like butter or butter alternative. And I think for a lot of people, it's a new stepping stone for them. It's like, kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, how do I actually fry things if there's not anything to fry it on?
Yes, yes, and you can't expect to have something fried without oil. Like, so if you do want something fried, use the oil because you will be sorely disappointed if you don't. But what I find is that a lot of people, um, apart from the frying, are really used to just using a lot of oil in everyday cooking that isn't necessarily frying. And they don't even realize like how much they're using because they're like, oh, just some here, just some there, just some there. So there's so many things like salad dressings, right? You can use cashews, you can use tahini, um, you can do just totally like red wine vinegar and Dijon mustard and a little bit of soy sauce and some garlic. Like there's so many different things to do that don't involve oil with like salad dressings. If I saute stuff, I'll do like a water saute. And once my whole meal is together, like I will never miss the oil because it's going to have different flavors and different textures and there's going to be a delicious sauce on top. As far as like baking stuff, like roasting stuff, I just do like lemon juice, tahini, a bunch of seasonings, toss those all together, put them in the oven and roast them. There's going to be a certain amount of oil like in tahini or in like nut butters. I don't mess, like that's fine, whatever. Um and then if I really want something fried, then I will go to like my local Vietnamese place and order some fried egg rolls that are vegan and enjoy them.
Yeah, I think when people they first cut out, whether that be oil, whether that be sugar, whether that be unnecessary fats, they kind of they panic because I think, it's the taste, it's the comfort, it's what they've been used to like cooking in certain ways, and trying to reinvent the wheel, I guess, scares people. When realistically, it's not overly that hard. It's just having to learn not a whole new process. It's just different techniques.
Yeah, that's it. And that can be really fun. So I encourage people like go at this with a curiosity and be like, "Huh, okay, how can I do this?" And it really like once you get used to it, you'll see it's not that hard. And it does taste really good and it's really not. And I understand like I have been eating gluten-free for the past like 6 years now. And not because I thought gluten was bad at all. I loved it. But because I have this really annoying skin condition and called perioral dermatitis. And I had been struggling with it for like a solid year. It came out of nowhere. And it was really itchy and it looked like acne, but it hurt and it was itchy. It was horrible. And so if after like a year of trying to figure out what this was, I mean, I really went deep in my research. I tried everything. And I finally came across this resource of this woman who started this skincare company in Colorado who had gone through this. And so she put together kind of like here's what you can do for this. And one of the things was to take out gluten. And I was like, okay, I can do everything else, but I don't want to do that because I was used to it and I didn't want to give up sourdough. And like, I don't want to be gluten free. And that's like taking it too far. And so I did everything else on her list and my skin did clear up a bit. And I was like, well, I'm just going to take it out for like 2 weeks and see what happens. And my skin cleared up within like 5 days. And I was like, God damn it. But I was terrified of it. And then, after a few weeks of not eating any gluten, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't actually that hard at all, because eating a whole food plant-based diet, I'm practically eating gluten-free anyways. I just have to eliminate like the whole wheat tortillas and the whole wheat bread and figure something else out. And it wasn't super scary after all. So we make things, I tell you that story just, as a reminder for people that we make things that we don't know yet about really big and scary, when most of the time it's not that scary at all.
Yeah, it's one of those things that like, it's just a slight bit of change. It's not like uplifting and uplifting your whole entire life. It's a tiny bit of change that realistically, if you don't like after a while, you can go back to what you're doing. Like, it's
Totally.
like you don't have to, if you don't enjoy it, you don't have to stick with it forever.
Exactly. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing too. I think, you can play around with it. You can experiment with it and you can make it your own. I mean, and at this point I do eat gluten once in a while and I can have a little bit and then it's fine. And I do. And so, and like I said, sometimes I do want something fried and like, yeah, I'm going to go and really have something fried and really enjoy it and really love it. And it's not the end of the world. Like, I'm definitely not super, strict. I mean, I am in a way, but I am also, I'm not in a way as well. And I give myself a lot of like leeway because I don't ever want to feel deprived. I don't ever want to do something because I shouldn't do it. I want to do something because I want to do it. And so if there's ever anything I'm doing because I think I should be doing, or I feel obligated to, or it's going to do it, make somebody else happy, I always just like pause, be like, okay, how do I feel about this? And so with food, I don't do it. I don't avoid things because I shouldn't. I avoid things that I really truly want to avoid. Like, I will never eat meat and I will never eat dairy and I will never eat eggs. Like, I don't want any part in that. I'll eat oil sometimes and I'll eat out at restaurants, but apart from those like non-negotiables, I'm flexible.
I think that's the realistically the way we should all be looking at it, is the fact that like these things, like you can still go out and eat at a restaurant. You don't have to restrict your whole entire life and then never go out again. And like, yeah, there's the same with me. It's non-negotiables. Is meat, eggs, dairy, whatever else. It kind of comes under that, but it's very much just being consistent. And then, when I do want to go out with some friends, eat at a restaurant, do whatever, then I can. There's not that kind of restriction, which I think, so for some people, it's all or nothing. There's no in between. It's kind of, we either go all one way or all the other way, and then get very frustrated when it doesn't work out because you've kind of restricted yourself to a point that you've kind of demonized everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be a big joy suck. And all of a sudden it's like, what's the point of trying to get healthier if you're just miserable? Right. And I think about this often because I think that I do have such a all or nothing relationship with alcohol. And that for me is like a big non-negotiable, and that has to be all or nothing. But food is a little bit different in that we have to eat, right? Like we don't have to drink, but we have to eat. But we don't have to eat everything. Right. So it's like you have to find your own like boundaries with it. And I think that all or nothing can be really dangerous for people. And I think oftentimes that's the reason why people don't stick to eating this way, because they haven't found that balance of like what feels really good to me without being too strict, with giving myself some grace. And, because they think that, well, I'm doing it wrong if I'm not 100%. Well, nobody's 100% really right? Unless you're very intentional with it, like alcohol. But I think that we could all, it serves us to find our non-negotiables and then to give yourself a lot of freedom outside of that. I think that's a very easy place to live.
I completely agree. I think as well, like a lot of people, it comes down to taste when they're kind of like cutting out meat, eggs, dairy. It's kind of like, oh, what am I going to eat? But I'm like, if you do eat this way long enough, your taste buds do do eventually change, they wake up, and I think most people don't realize how numb their tongues, their taste buds have become, because you haven't ever stripped away those extras. And once you've stripped away those extras and take out the things such as like the meat, dairy, eggs, fish, whatever, and then left with the basics, after a while these things are tasty. You just kind of have to allow your body to kind of, adjust. Be like, oh, there's a new flavor. Or because I'm not covering it up with the piece of steak that was with this piece of lettuce, that
Right.
I'm gonna try and enjoy something new.
Yeah, it's true. And it doesn't take that long. It only takes a couple of weeks really for the taste buds to kind of start to come alive again and really be able to taste the subtlety, right? Like, celery actually has a wonderful salty taste to it. And so does and like romaine lettuce actually has a really wonderful sweetness to it. And having all of those flavors, like it's such a delight to be able to really taste your food and have those flavors kind of dancing on your tongue. It's like what I find is for most people, it's way more enjoyable once they reach that part, that place, than it was just having the big slab of meat and a hunk of cheese. Like they thought that that was desirable because it was making the pleasure center of their brain go crazy because it had so much fat, sugar, and salt. Um, but when they eliminate that and really just start relying on the flavors, all of a sudden it's like, well, that's actually like way more enjoyable than that was. But you're right. I mean, you do have to give yourself the chance to get to that point and to stick with it long enough so that it does start to taste good, because it will be a transition. And in the beginning, it might not taste great. Like it's going to taste, it's going to take a little while.
Yeah, especially like that I look at, and I think this is probably a lot worse in places like the States, and the UK, Australia. That they're not much better, to be fair. Whereas we have a over reliance on ultra processed foods, like some really ultra processed that are chemically made to taste exactly how they want. So like if you're coming from a ultra processed diet where the salt, sugar, and fat contents are perfectly aligned for you to be addicted, that if you switch over to a whole foods plant based diet, it's going to be boring for the first week. You're not going to have those like wild flavors that you're getting from whatever bar came out of the factory that day.
Yeah, it's wild, right? And it's like it's people who come up with these recipes and find that, I think it's called like bliss point in
Yeah,
food. These people are paid to create the combinations that are going to keep us hooked the most. Like this is bananas. This is not good. And so it's like you're right. I mean, if you're used to eating that stuff, if you're going to like, you have a whole thing of Pringles and then you eat a carrot, that shit is not going to be exciting. It's just not. But I think it's good. It's important for people to realize that these food manufacturers who are doing this, like they are, the only goal that they have is for profit. They do not care about our health. And well, but it's the same thing. I mean, I think that look at cigarettes. We know at this point it's very clear that like they are not healthy. They cause cancer, not good. And yet, how many people smoke? Right. I mean, this is humans are so funny. I mean, it's a wild thing. But once you can kind of detox from that stuff and really start to taste real food, I mean, it's an exciting shift that happens for people. And I see people in our community, I see it happen to them. And the like rush that they get from that is really exciting to watch.
that's exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head. Is that there is that bliss point, and if we're going to try and move away from that, it's so hard. Like I grew up. I wouldn't say it was the unhealthiest diet, but it was very much a mixture of kind of like home cooked things and things that you'd stick in the freezer and then the microwave sometimes. And like those things were tasty because they were made to be tasty. And that was back in the 90s. So with that, I can only imagine how far it's come now if I was to go and try and taste some of those things again in the freezer section. Obviously, I don't, but like I can only imagine that it's an addictive substance for the majority of the population to be, consistently eating on a day-to-day basis, and it be so cheap as well. And I know
Mhm.
for a fact, like obviously, I was in the States a few weeks ago, and I saw some of the food that is there, and I was like, there is no hope sometimes.
We are officially hopeless. There's no going back. No, I feel the same way. And I think too, it's cheap, it's convenient, it tastes really good, right? In air quotes. And people here are busy. People here are struggling financially. People don't have a lot of time. And the thing is, eating a healthy plant-based diet, it requires you to do a certain amount of prep in your kitchen, right? It can be minimal, but you got to spend at least a little bit of time in your kitchen, because this isn't the food that you're going to find in the freezer section and just like nuke for 30 seconds. And so there's these forces that are like working against each other. And this is why I do what I do, really, because I see that people need a lot of help with this, and a lot of empowerment and encouragement. Like, I batch cook every single weekend, and I set aside a couple hours, and I make like a sauce, a thing of beans, a soup, salad dressing. I prep my veggies. I created like the whole part of our business that actually monetized and was able to like create a business was our subscription to meal plans, just because people were like, oh, well, what are you making? And I'm like, oh, I can show you what I'm making. I'll just write it down. And so it started very organically. So this is like a whole thing that we show people how to do. But like, if I don't do that prep, even if it's just minimal, I'm not going to eat as healthy, because we need to eat, and we're going to eat. We can't go without it. Right. And I always think to myself, okay, how else, like if I wasn't spending these 2 hours doing this, what would I be spending my time on? And I can't think of anything that would serve me better at that moment than to put those 2 hours into prepping some food so that I'm, have food during the week that's healthy.
That's the thing. I think meal prep is I think it's something that we all bang on about quite a lot. However, it still it's such an underrated tool that people still don't do. Because the thing is, you can spend those 2 hours in the kitchen and doing it, and you're going to be kind of set for the rest of the week, and you're going to be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But there's also sometimes there's a 2 hours, or there's 2 hours to, watch Netflix or scroll TikTok. And people are kind of like,
Yes,
well, I'd rather do that.
But would you really? That's what I say. Like, but would you really? And what part of your brain really wants to do that? Right? It's that instant gratification that right now we are so bombarded with. Instant gratification is everywhere. We don't have to wait on anything. I was thinking the other day about like how awesome it was, like, in the 80s and 90s, when we had to, like, our favorite artist was coming out with the tape, and we had to wait until the tape dropped, and then you had to go to the record store, and then like maybe they were sold out because they only had so many copies, and then you had to wait more. And how, like, what a magical moment it was to finally get that cassette tape in your hand and to press play for the first time. Like, wow, that was such magic. And we don't have that anymore because we don't have to wait on shit anymore. And so we're so used to that instant gratification that, like, yeah, there's a part of our brain that thinks it's going to be a lot better to go, zone out on Netflix for 2 hours. But really, like, search your brain and search your body and see if you would really rather do that, or if that's just that lizard brain being like, yes, gratification now. Boop.
That is literally it. It's very much we are, I think, now wired to kind of try and find that quick dopamine hit that's going to like really fulfill us for 5 seconds. And like, I don't think our brain is meant to be watching 1,500 small 30-second videos within an hour.
I don't think so. And I don't know what it's doing to us as a species, but it's got to be doing something, because we are not designed for that. And it's so addictive. It is so crazy addictive. And you really do have to like make an effort to like, okay, I'm going to go the other way. And, I think that social media is so good for so many things. I think there's so much useful content out there. And I'm so glad like people like you are making like such amazing content. And also there's so much shit out there too that we have to like wade through. But I think, yeah, as much as possible, I try to think of the idea of creating before I consume. So whether that is doing my work and creating like, doing my writing for the day before I turn on the computer and go to Facebook. Or creating could be creating food for the week before I turn on the TV. So always trying to like create before I consume is sort of my rule. And that helps me kind of have my priorities in the right place.
That is, I would say, near enough the same kind of routine that I have started to try and implement, because I think sometimes you can kind of get overwhelmed with the fact that all these socials exist, and you're trying to put out things on there constantly. And it's kind of like, I need time to do actual things, whether that be create, whether that, going out and just actually having some air, maybe looking at the stuff for 5 minutes.
Truth,
like,
yes.
like, just getting outside, or like, and that's the thing, like the choice between meal prep and, like watching Netflix, like the better option there is Netflix. Realistically, it's going to be a lot more fun slaving over a kitchen, but at the same time, like those 2 hours can be spent somewhere else, where later on down the line you have the food that you would have spent 2 hours cooking or getting a takeaway, and then you can go watch Netflix. Like
Exactly.
you have the choice. Like you can make things easier for yourself, or you can make things so much harder for yourself. So if you make it easier on Sunday, then you're going to have an easier life, and you can do, if you want to doom scroll for the next 6 hours, that's fine. At least you got your healthy food to go with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yesterday when I was done cooking, I turned on Netflix and I'm watching this. I don't know if you know Mae Martin, the comic, but she just released this new show called Weir. Anyways, I like watched 2 episodes of that, and I was so happy to put up my feet and to like watch Netflix. But like I know that like the most important part of my day is done, and it was Sunday, and like I was going to enjoy that. But I wouldn't, I at this point I'm so conditioned that I would never do that first, because then you know how it goes. Like even, I do like this stretching kind of routine in the morning, and I know that if I don't do it right away, I might think that I'm going to do it later, but like that never happens. And so if I don't do it right away, before I look at my phone, before I turn on the computer, before I do anything, if that's not done, then I know that it's just not going to happen, and that's just how it is. So we kind of have to set these rules and boundaries and trick ourselves a little bit sometimes to do the stuff that isn't as, quote unquote fun.
No, I resonate with that so much, because I think for me, like I wake up, I try to at least meditate every morning.
Mm-hmm.
However, like if you fall out of that on one day and you'll be like, I'll do it later, you won't do it later, but you
Forget
also
about
will
it.
not do it for the next week either.
Yeah.
Like, you just kind of fall out of the habit. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm gonna have those 10 minutes, those 20 minutes in the morning. Realistically, what am I really doing with those 10, 20 minutes at that time in the morning? Nothing. Just do it. And it's sometimes forcing ourselves to do things. And I think for most people, it is, it's progress. It's not perfection. Like, I know most of us deep down still chase perfection, even though
Mm-hmm.
it's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we're ever going to shake that off. But I do think that, yeah, we just need to aim for the progress, and, only good things can come from that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And you think about like even something like meditating for 10 minutes. What is 10 minutes in your whole day? It's nothing. But it can seem like such a big deal. And sometimes we just got to put it in its place, or put our thoughts in our place. Like, whatever, get over it. It's 10 minutes. Just go do it, And again, making something that we are, don't want to do in the moment, making it really big, when really, when you just do it, you're like, oh, that was actually really good. I'm so glad I did that. But
Yeah.
but it is a practice, and it is progress over perfection. And I think that you're right. Secretly, we all do want to like find that perfect point in that nobody has ever found. So I don't, keep me posted if you find it, but I'm pretty
I
sure it doesn't exist.
I think that, like, I don't even think, monks that sit there meditating for, years and years and years trying to find, the enlightenment that they need ever get there. Like,
Yeah.
and if they're not getting it, they're getting their life to it. Dave down the road is definitely not doing it. So, like,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
it's very
Exactly.
much, yeah.
Yeah. And what's really disappointing is like for so long, I was always like, okay, somebody else has got to have the answer. Like somebody else knows better than me. Somebody else like has some divine wisdom that they're going to share with me, and then I'm going to finally get it, and everything is finally going to be okay. And somebody else has the answers. And like that shit doesn't work either. You know, like other people might have wisdom for sure, but like nobody else can find your answers. Nobody else can like do this stuff for you. It's like such an internal job that for so long I thought that other people would, you know, save me somehow. And wow, that doesn't work at all. And that was you know, something that I really had to come to terms with. And my life got a lot easier when I stopped thinking that it was, you know, other people's jobs, or there was some magical person out there who was going to have all the answers and then I was going to finally be okay. Yeah.
It is the whole that the things that you're looking to achieve are normally hidden things you're avoiding. So it's just stop avoiding them, and those things will start to happen. You just need to, you know, get on.
Easy, right?
You mentioned that you have meal plans and you have, you know, a Facebook group, and you know, so for the people listening that kind of want to find out a bit more about what you do and what you have to offer as well, like where do we even start?
So go to cleanfooddirtygirl.com or mollypatrick.com too, if you, you know, but cleanfooddirtygirl.com, it has everything there. So I, when I first started Clean Food Dirty Girl in 2014, I had never had an online business. I never worked online. I was always in like restaurants and this and that, very, more in-person type of stuff. And so I was like, well, I can figure it out. I'm just going to figure it out. And, even in 2014, there was so many people who like had the answer. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. And I got really overwhelmed by it. And I'm like, wait a minute. I just need to focus on like, I need to find like 2 people that I like their stuff and I just need to learn from them. And so I kind of stopped following everybody else, picked a couple of people who I really admired and took their lead basically. And so one of the things that came up with one of those people is like start an email list, like get people's emails. It doesn't matter what kind of presence you have on social media. And like this was a long time ago, but it's still true. You know, get their email addresses and send them useful information. And that's how you can start building a community and start building trust. And so I started doing that. So I've been sending out a Saturday email every Saturday since January 2014. And so I call them my Sweary Saturday love letters. And it's where I open up about stuff that I'm dealing with. Yeah, there's like food and nutrition stuff and like plant-based stuff, but a lot of it is just like me processing like messy things in my life in a way that maybe other people could find useful. So you can sign up for those. It says love letters on the top, totally free and just like a weekly dose of humanness. And then I have a podcast, I have a blog, we have the meal plans. I have a plant-powered weight loss kind of program, which is awesome. We have lots of free recipes on the blog. So yeah, there's a lot of good information there.
You've got a lot out there. And do your sweary Saturdays also include a load of swearing?
Yeah, I mean, they do. You're not going to, you know, it's not every, you know, the funny thing is that when I started, I was not a good writer at all. And I did not want to write. I never thought that I wanted to write. I was horrible at spelling and grammar, and I never thought that I would have to do it. And then starting a business, I'm like, I am going to have to do that a little bit. And I wasn't any good in the beginning. And I really used, you know, like cursing as, you know, I couldn't find any other better words. And so it was just laced with it. It was just like so much cursing. And as I've gotten to be a better writer, I naturally have used less of it because I'm able to articulate my thoughts better and more succinctly and accurately. I still definitely throw in F-bombs when appropriate and still swear, but it's not like it was in the beginning just because I've become a more decent writer.
And there's always room for a well-structured fuck.
Yeah, like... always. Thank God. We still have that. No matter how hopeless.
Molly, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Thank you for being here. I'm grateful for you.
Thank you so much. I've had the best time.